ahead and head on south to the AFC and NFC so we can go ahead and do this breakdown. Starting off with the AFC, of course, with the most underrated team. Ethan, who you got?
The most underrated team in the AFC South. This is difficult, but I'm actually going to say the Jacksonville Jaguars. Simply because the reason I say this is the teams in front of them, I feel like they are properly rated, in my opinion. And the Houston Texans are one of the worst teams in the NFL. And I think that the Jags, even though I honestly and truly don't agree with anything that Urban Meyer's been doing this offseason and during training camp, I think that they have some talent in place to, I'm not going to say like they're going to make the playoffs, but I can see them pushing a couple teams to the brink, especially if they're able to get Trevor Lawrence fully adapt and adjusted to their offense and the pieces around him kind of plays to a decent level.
Yeah, I also have the Jags as the most underrated team. Like I mentioned, I think I said somebody like last week, like, even if I have you underrated, that don't mean I think your Magic is going to have a transcendent year. I just think that the Jags' overall roster is much better than people give them credit for. DJ Chark, when healthy, is a really good receiver. Marvin Jones is very reliable. Laviska Shenault. We talked a lot about the CeeDee Lambs and the Justin Jeffersons, of course, and the Brandon Ayuks, but Laviska had a really good rookie year as well. Some injuries kind of took away some playing time, but when he was on the field, he proved to be that swift Army knife that he was drafted to be. Not to mention defensively, Miles Jack is a great player. I really like Andre Sisco, who they drafted this year. And they made moves in their secondary as well. So overall, they have a solid roster that has pieces that you can really build on. And do I trust Urban Meyer? No, not necessarily. But I do think that this team overall is much better than their record would indicate. But in terms of overrated team, this was tough because you mentioned like everybody's pretty properly rated. The only reason why I'm going to go with the Titans is just I'm still not really sold on their defense. Like, Bud Dupree is coming off an ACL, which we know kind of takes time to work back. And then aside from really Jeffrey Simmons, your pass rush is kind of really struggling right now. And so while you've made moves to kind of make it better, who's to say that those moves are going to work? Not to mention the losses in the secondary. So that's really the only reason why I have the Titans as overrated, but I still think collectively they're the best team in the division.
So, I think I'm about to shock everybody. I'm actually in agreement with you. I will say the Titans, even though I think they have some big questions on the defensive side of the football. Yes, they added Bud Dupree, but Bud Dupree has never been the guy that's been like dominant pass rusher that you put in he hasn't been like a TJ Watt, a Khalil Mack, or a Von Miller, hell, even a Bradley Chubb. I want him to be this for my team, but I haven't seen it. And like you said, the secondary, like I like Jack Robert Jenkins, but it's like I don't like him as my cornerback one. I would have preferred him as a CB2 or CB3. But I do like the pieces that they have in place. I also like the fact that this year they actually have a defensive coordinator. But as far as this statement, I would have to go with the Titans.
All right, so moving on. Who is your favorite player in the AFC West? I mean, AFC South. I already know who you're going to say, but you know.
Take a guess.
I'm going to Derrick Henry or Jeffrey Simmons?
Jeffrey Simmons.
Yes. Go on.
I'm a big D-line guy, and you know he's in the category of guys that came from Mississippi State. The Chris Jones is the Fletcher Cox. Like in my opinion, he might be the next up and coming great defensive tackle. And as much as I love Derrick Henry, I like D-linemen more so because I played D-line. Yes, I wanted to be a running back when I played football, but it never worked out. So I'm more partial to the D-lineman.
I'm scared to say my favorite player just because everything that's going on. But purely as a player, as a football player, what he does on the football field, I love me some Deshaun Watson. I'm going to leave it at that. Purely as a player. All right, moving on to prove it year. I don't even have a player. I say Urban Meyer. And while this is a situation where I don't think that, anybody is expecting the Jags to have a tremendous year, but if the Jags don't at least show significant improvement last year, just overall in their play, let's be honest, Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be the scapegoat. They're not going to look at Trevor Lawrence. They're not going to look at the players. They're going to look at Urban Meyer. And I'll tell you, Urban Meyer is not going to last nearly as long as Trevor Lawrence is with that organization. So if Urban Meyer is not able to make some solid moves and to really make this team a competitive one, or at least one that looks better than it did a year ago, he's going to be gone much sooner than people think.
All right, since you went that route, I'm going to take the player route. And for me, this previous year, I'm going to say quarterback Carson Wentz. Because he came off a really bad season last year with the Eagles. Probably a season that was more, putting more notoriety behind simply because he played in Philadelphia and those fans are very unforgiving. And also, he's coming back from yet another injury. Like, it's been one of the big tales of Carson Wentz. Like, when he's healthy, he's been a good to decent player. At one point, he was an MVP level talent. But he always gets hurt. And I think the coach, they have the overall structure of a team to where it's like, if you just can get a solid quarterback they are a Super Bowl candidate. So can Carson Wentz stay healthy, and is he going to be able to find that magic that he had a couple seasons ago with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, Carson was definitely a close second for me, just because you can make an argument he has the most to prove out of any quarterback in the league this year. All right, breakout year. Who are you expecting to break out this season?
I am expecting cornerback Christian Fulton of the Tennessee Titans, one of your Bayou Bengals, to have a breakout season. As you know, as a Titans fan, I've been really close to what's been going on in training camp. And they said that he looks like a completely different player than he was his first season in the NFL. So I got to go with my boy.
I'm actually in agreement with you. I also have Christian Fulton. Like pretty much for everything you said, he's had a really good offseason, definitely building on what he did as a rookie. And then not to mention, it's going to be even more opportunities this year with so much roster turnover, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So we should be seeing a lot of Christian Fulton this year. And hopefully he can continue the tradition of LSU being DBU. In terms of the rookie I am watching, I'm keeping it in Tennessee, and I'm going to say Caleb Farley. Out of this past year's NFL draft, he was my favorite cornerback, and I really feel that had it not been for the back injury, he would have gone much higher than 22nd overall, which I believe where he went. But overall, I just think that Caleb Farley has tremendous ball skills. He's great in coverage. Really everything you want out of a corner, he can do that and then some. And with just his overall ability and knack to create those plays, that's what's going to make him a superstar. And honestly, a ball-hawking corner is something that the Tennessee Titans have not had for several years. And if you're on a defense and you can create turnovers, you're immediately going to get a lot of pop and you're going to be a lot better. And I think Caleb Farley can really give that to the Titans.
So I'm going to go with a way more obvious choice. I'm going to say Trevor Lawrence, simply because he's coming to the NFL with, I guess, some of the biggest hype that has had in Andrew Luck?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And, I think he's actually going to live up to the hype to an extent. I do think he's going to have some rough sledding simply because his O-line is atrocious, as you saw in that game against the Saints. Mm-hmm. They couldn't block a cold. So I don't know how they're going to expect him to stay up for the remainder of the season. But I think he's going to they're going to figure it out and find a way for him to put up numbers. So I got to keep my eye on Sunshine.
All right, bold prediction for the AFC South.
For me, my bold prediction is this. The Tennessee Titans will be a top 15 defense throughout this season. And the reason I say this is because they have some good pieces on defense. I think Jeffrey Simmons is going to take another step up as being a dominant defensive tackle. I think Bud Dupree is going to be a guy that
also on the defensive side of the ball, but I'm going to say the Indianapolis Colts. And my bold prediction is the Colts fail to have a top 15 defense this season. While they still have some very solid pieces on that squad, such as, of course, Darius Leonard, who was one of the best, if not the best, linebackers in the game, DeForest Buckner holding it down up front, I think that their defense is going to suffer a bit. I think that their secondary, while it does its job, it's not a tremendous group. I like Xavier Rhodes a lot. He kind of reintroduced himself to the league, but I do think that there are going to be opportunities to exploit that secondary, which is going to hurt a bit. I think their pass rush is also going to hurt a bit. I'm not saying Justin Houston's like the greatest guy for them last year, but I want to say he might have led them in sacks, or he was at least very close to the top. Replacing him with a guy like Kawhi Pay could pay off in the future, but I just don't think that their pass rush is really going to be able to really sustain it. Not to mention losing guys like Danico Autry, going to your in-division rival, the Tennessee Titans, another guy who may not be the biggest name, but he really played a big role in them stopping the run. So overall, I just think that the Colts defense is going to take some steps back this year. They're not going to be the daunting force that they were a season ago. But all right, division winner, I got Titans. I know you're going to say Titans too, but you know.
Most definitely.
All right, let's move on to the NFC South. Kicking it off with the most underrated team. Who you got?
For me, I'm going to go with another wild card. I'm actually going to say the Saints. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think that so much emphasis has been put on their offense and what they don't have in this whole dramatic cycle with Michael Thomas. But a lot of people forget the Saints for the past, I would say 3 to 4 years, the Saints have always had a really stout defense. And I think they're coming into this season with another stout defense. Yes, I think offensively a lot of things are going to change simply because you don't have Drew Brees under center. You don't have a stable of wide receivers that you're used to having. You still have Alvin Kamara, and he can win games for you by himself, i.e. the Minnesota game when he scored 6 touchdowns. But I think that defense, and you add in some of the offensive pieces that they do have, I definitely have them as the most underrated.
You mentioned that Christmas game. I would just like to say that was really disrespectful. The Vikings, they got a family. He didn't have to do them that bad.
Nah, you did get your money, bro.
I mean, look, it's Christmas. You could have spared them a little bit. But yeah, that was a great game. I'm gonna go to the Panthers. I think that they are really building up a team that could be really good in the future. Of course, that's dependent on their quarterback. Defensively, I really like Jeremy Chin. I think Jeremy Chin was a great addition for them last year. Was one of the best rookie defensive players. It had a strong argument for Defensive Rookie of the Year, not to mention some offseason additions that they made, such as signing Hassan Reddick, who is coming off of a career year, really wanting to prove that he can be one of the most versatile edge rushers in the league. Also, kind of talking about the back end, you got guys like Dante Jackson. Like, yeah, he's really made some good moves on the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, I mean, we know they're going to be potent because they have just so many weapons. Like I said, it really just is dependent on their quarterback. And I think that everyone is kind of seeing Sam Darnold and looking at them with, the hazard signs. But truthfully, the Panthers have a really nicely put together roster that could become really dangerous in the next few years. But moving on to my most overrated team, it's not even that I fully think they're overrated. I just think people don't recognize how bad of a situation the Falcons are in. Like, I know this is really probably going to be a rebuilding year, but you just got to look at it like their defense is still very bad. If anything, they've lost more pieces than they've actually gained. Keanu Neal was a great safety for them when he was on the field, and right now he's no longer there. You have Deion Jones, but don't really have much help around him. Same goes for Grady Jarrett on the defensive line. So their defense is going to get picked apart on a pretty regular basis. And while in the past you could just say, oh, well, we got Julio. Oh, well, we can run the ball. Two of those things you don't have anymore. And while Mike Davis could still be a serviceable back for you, I think that the offense is going to be nowhere near as potent as it used to be. And this could be a year where the Falcons wind up with one of the worst records in the league.
For me, I'm going to be completely honest. I am going to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think they are an amazing team. I understand that they're the Super Bowl champs. But I feel like so many people are riding high off of the whole. They're coming off the Super Bowl, and it's been proven historically that whatever team wins the Super Bowl that next year, they aren't to the same. They aren't the same caliber team that they were the year before they won the Super Bowl. I also think that a lot of teams in the NFC period have gotten better to where that just potential lockout that everybody assumes that they have on the spot in the Super Bowl is a little bit more under duress. Like I think Seattle, they're a team that could vie for a spot. The Packers, they could be a team that vies for a spot. It's a lot of different teams that could potentially make a run at the Super Bowl at the expense of the Bucks. And also, we still don't know at one point when is Tom Brady gonna fall off the cliff. Like, I don't want to say, I'm not about to go out there and say like I think this is the year, but we don't know. Like, we can legitimately go like this season starts and Tom Brady is the quarterback that we once saw before. So I gotta say the Bucks, and I mean a lot of it too was also like, what are some of these returning players gonna look like? Like, what is Ndamukong Suh gonna look like? Like, he was dominant in the Super Bowl, but he wasn't really dominant all season. So I gotta go Bucks.
Which is a very fair assessment. Favorite player in the division?
Grady Jarrett. Again, another D lineman, and he's amazing. In my opinion, he's definitely a top 5 defensive lineman.
Yeah, he deserves his flowers because let's be honest, the Falcons aren't getting many this year. For me, keeping on the defensive side of the ball, you know I had to go with an LSU Tiger. Devin White. I love me some Devin White. I have loved Devin White since his days at LSU. And he's just making the purple and gold look real good. Like, you can't tell me a defensive player last year who had a better overall playoff performance than Devin White. You can't tell me anybody defensively who boosted their stock more than Devin White did in the playoffs, because that Saints game, he was all over. The Super Bowl, he was all over. Washington's game. Anytime you needed Devin White to make a play, that man made a play, which is just a testament to what he did at LSU and what I know he's going to continue to do during his time in the league. And I'm not going to lie, I'm really close to getting a jersey. Not a Bucks one. I'm going to get me an LSU one. But love me some Devin White. All right, moving on to the prove it year. I didn't say a quarterback last time, but I'm definitely going to say one this time, and that's Sam Darnold. Like I mentioned earlier when I was calling, the Panthers the most underrated team in the division, a lot of people see Sam Darnold and get scared. They expect failure because that's what his career has been. And if he has another bad year with Carolina, especially with the weapons around him, such as the receiving core and having Christian McCaffrey back healthy, there is going to be no excuse. Sam Darnold is going to be seen as the problem rather than him just being in a bad situation. And so while he's young, this is only his 4th season, people are going to be looking at him, especially in comparison to other cats like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who have had so much success since stepping into the league, and wondering, what is your problem? Why aren't you working? So yeah, I'm going Sam Darnold.
I'm actually in agreement with you for everything that you stated, and also the fact that the Carolina Panthers essentially fully invested in Sam Darnold. They got rid of Teddy Two Gloves, and that would have been a guy that would have been behind Sam Darnold that we knew was a very capable quarterback. He just won a starting job in Denver, and they're putting all of their stock into him. Like we said before in previous episodes, he's shown that he has amazing talent, but he's shown flashes. Can he put that together for a whole season and not be the focal point of a reason why teams think that they have a losing season? Because like you said, they have Robbie Anderson, they have Christian McCaffrey, they have a pretty decent defense. So if they lose games, it's going to be on Sam Darnold's shoulders.
Most def. All right, so moving on to our breakout player. Who do you think breaks out of the NFC South?
Who do I think is going to break out?
I got one if you want to think about it.
I'll let you go.
I'm going to say Marquez Callaway, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Jameis was throwing dimes in that preseason game, and who was most of them going to? Mr. Callaway. I think that he showed some flashes last season when Michael Thomas was out, and I think that right now, looking at that receiving core, he kind of has to be seen as that wide receiver one. And if he can continue to build chemistry with Jameis and really build that connection, this could prove to be a very good year for him, especially because he's a relative unknown. He's not a guy that was heavily scouted or really thought about as a draftable candidate, hence why he went undrafted. But now he has an opportunity to really have a lot of success for the Saints, and I think that that is precisely what's going to happen, especially with so much uncertainty with Michael Thomas.
So for me, I'm going to go with the guy by the name. He's not really. It's hard to say he's going to have a breakout year because he's already been amazing, but I think he's also going to step up even more given the circumstance. I have to go with wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones is gone. Yes, they have Kyle Pitts, but who is Matt Ryan going to look at on the outside? He's going to look at Calvin Ridley. Every game that Julio Jones was out for injury, if I'm not mistaken, Calvin Ridley had 100 plus yards. So I think he's going to fully step into the wide receiver one role, and he's going to put a lot of people on notice.
Most def. All right, moving on to our rookie to watch. What rookie are you watching?
Kyle Pitts. I think I watched him in Florida. I liked him in Florida. He fits the mold of the NFL tight end in today's NFL. He's essentially a very big wide receiver, and I think he is going to present a lot of mismatches for a lot of teams throughout the course of this season.
All right, I'm going to go with a bit of a dark horse, but I'm going to say Paulson Adebo, third-round pick for the New Orleans Saints, cornerback. Big reason I'm going with Paulson is because we know that Marshawn Lattimore is the number one, but looking at the rest of their cornerback group, it's not much that you get excited about. You know, we talk about their front seven who was able to produce. They have a really good group of safeties, but their cornerbacks are clearly the biggest issue. And because they didn't have the cap space to make a really big move or commit a first-round pick or second-round pick to the position, I think that just shows that they believe that Paulson Adebo can really be one of those guys that steps up. And I think that he can do that. I mean, when healthy at Stanford, he was easily their best cornerback, could have gone higher had he not gotten hurt last year. And I think he's a guy who has a lot of potential. And I think that for a defense like the Saints, who really are going to have to carry the load a bit, especially as Jameis really gets accustomed to that starting spot, they're going to need everyone to step up, and I think that Paulson Adebo is going to be one of those cats who does that. But all right, my bold prediction is I'm going to show some love to the Panthers. I'm going to say that the Panthers wide receiver trio of Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and Terrace Marshall have more receiving yards than the Bucs trio of Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown.
I can actually see that. For me, my bold prediction is statistically, Jameis Winston might be the best quarterback in the conference this upcoming season.
I could see it. The biggest question is, can he get those interceptions down? If he does that, Jameis is in the money. I got Bucs winning the division. How about you?
Yeah, I got